Hello and welcome once again to the video. In this one, whilst once again playing with my Lewis Hamilton 2024 Mercedes Hot Wheel model, just as something to fiddle with basically during the video. Yes, so whilst fiddling with this, I will be taking a look at the second and final 3-day Bahrain F1 test in advance of the start of the 2026 Formula One World Championship. Not a technical look particularly, just a fan's perspective as ever. Just my thoughts basically on the teams, the drivers, just some fairly basic stuff. I just finished literally about half an hour ago. I finished watching all the testing coverage. Some of my views will obviously undoubtedly be the same as what the views of the pundits were. That's not me copying them, that's just me seeing the same thing basically. But some of my views will counter what the pundits are saying, no doubt. So let's see, I made a few notes. Oh yeah, the number one thing that has really confused me, and I mentioned it in the last video that I did on the first test. Why on earth has Adrian Newey made himself team principal? Obviously it would have been, I assume, more his decision than anyone else's. I mean, Adrian Newey is Aston Martin's star signing. Whatever he wants, he gets. They wouldn't force him to be a team principal. So I reckon he went, I want to be team principal. And they went, yeah, but Adrian, really? Yes, I want to be team principal. Oh, okay, you can be team principal. It makes no sense whatsoever. Why would you make your shy, reclusive, creative genius who likes to hide in the shadows, why would you A, give him loads more responsibility as team principal, and B, why would you distract him basically? So he's distracted from his main job. And also it means he gets thrust into the limelight. I don't know if that's A, B and C or just A and B on my reasons there. I lost track of, I sort of repeated myself with B, didn't I? I'll tell you what, forget the whole A and B thing. We'll just say, why on earth would you want to make your creative genius a team principal, which means they've got to be in the public eye more so. And surely that's going to distract them from their job. Now, I've seen this a lot over the decades in cricket. Okay, I'm not a big cricket fan, but I will watch, the big cricket series that England are in, like the Ashes and any World Cups, that sort of thing. Any big test match series. And over the decades, I've seen many, many times a player made captain of the team because they're very good at batting or very good at bowling or very good at wicket keeping, and it's just assumed that therefore they will be very good at being a captain. And many times I've seen not only them fail as a captain very quickly and be replaced very quickly, but also it's affected their batting or bowling or wicket keeping because they're having to focus on something else rather than the thing they're very good at. Now, I've seen that loads of times over the decades, particularly in cricket, as I say. But I think that happens in all sport, but I've just noticed it the most in cricket. Now, why would they do that here? Adrian Newey has spent, ever since the March days in the late 80s, he's been sitting in a darkened room out the back, back at the factory, rarely seen at the circuit, although in his Red Bull days he seemed to be at the circuit a lot more often. But anyway, he's always in the shadows, and that's where he works best. He's a quiet guy, he's unassuming, quiet, off in the background somewhere. Why does he want to be like Zach Brown, jumping up and down, giving victory signals to the camera and things like that? I know Zach Brown's not a team principal, he's a CEO, isn't he, of McLaren, but if you're a team principal, you have to be a bit Zach Brownish. I mean, look at Toto Wolff. He's always in front of the camera. You look at Fred Vasseur, he's always in front of the camera. Andrea Stella, not as much as Zach Brown, but Andrea Stella is in front of the camera a lot as well. I haven't seen a single interview with Newey. Is he saving himself for the races? There was on one of these testing days, there was a team principal press conference, and there were 5 or 6 teams represented, and one of them was Aston Martin, and it was the only team that didn't have their team principal present. Instead, there was another representative there, because of course Newey doesn't want to do that, does he? He doesn't want to do any press stuff. And we've got Pedro de la Rosa as the spokesperson of Aston Martin, so that, again, Adrian Newey doesn't need to go in front of the camera and say anything. I think for all the people that are heavily invested in Aston Martin, not just in the team, but outside, I mean, investors, everything, I think it's important that Adrian Newey, with the way that the team has done in testing, Adrian Newey should be there talking on camera about the team, because he's the team principal. Instead, he seems to want to be team principal so that he can control everything, but still hide in a darkened room out the back somewhere. And I was watching it today, and at one point you do see Adrian Newey, not for long, because Aston Martin were not doing anything for very long in the third day, or any of the days actually. But specifically the third day, they were not doing much. And Adrian Newey appears alongside the car. He notices the cameras on him, and so he slides off into the background again, into the darkness and shadows at the back of the garage. How can you have a team principal like that? I don't get it. I do not get it. That makes no sense. And I reckon that his performance on the design front, which clearly isn't over, obviously. I mean, Newey's these designers are there all year long tweaking things, and the Aston Martin needs more than a tweak. So it's not like his job is done, so now he'll do some team principal work. No, he should be out the back doing the job he's been doing for 35 years. Very strange. I don't get it. And of course, Aston Martin is in a terrible state. It's terrible. You know, cars have problems, of course. These teams have problems, and they, like Ferrari, lost an hour and a half on Wednesday evening, and Lewis Hamilton lost an hour and a half, and then Thursday morning, Lewis Hamilton again lost 3.5 hours or something of the morning session. He only did 5 laps in the whole of the morning. It meant that he only did 71 laps less than Leclerc throughout the 3-day test, and didn't have a proper go at the fast times like Leclerc did, which was a bit of a shame. We weren't able to see what Hamilton could really do. But anyway, so teams have suffered like that. McLaren, I mean, Lando Norris missed 2 hours on the final afternoon. Antonelli's lost a lot of time. The teams have all been suffering like that, but the weird thing with Aston Martin was that they, even before the afternoon session began, they said, even before the day's session began, actually, so the combined 8 hours on the final day, even before it had begun, they said, due to the problems we had yesterday with our battery, we're only going to do 6 are only going to do a very short in and out program. And sure enough, they just went out for an out lap and then in for an in lap with Stroll, and they did that 3 times. So 6 laps, but none of the laps were full laps, so there was no time recorded. And that was it. That was it for the whole day. That was it for the whole day, morning and afternoon session. And that was planned in advance because of the problems the previous day. Well, the problems the whole test. I mean, they've got Honda back in Japan working on the battery and its integration with the internal combustion unit and everything. It's all being worked on back in Japan. Terrible stuff. And do we have the team principal coming up to the camera and reassuring us at all? No. We have Pedro de la Rosa instead. Very silly. Of course, Pedro de la Rosa was the driver who nearly got the McLaren drive in 2007. It was down to Pedro de la Rosa or Lewis Hamilton. It seems ridiculous now. Obviously, McLaren were aware that Lewis Hamilton was the big star of the future, but they were unsure as to whether or not to go with the young driver. I mean, now they go with, ever since Verstappen showed it could be done, they're going with young drivers all the time. Arvid Lindblad is only 18. Well, Lewis Hamilton was 21 when he started in Formula One, and yet that was sort of almost considered fragile and too young back then. So he was nearly not brought into the team. Instead, they were going to plug the gap for a year with Pedro de la Rosa. But in the end, McLaren went with Hamilton. But there you go. I don't think that there was no shootout for times or anything like that, because they knew Hamilton was quicker, really. They just didn't know whether or not to go with the safe bet, a psychological safe bet of an experienced driver, Pedro de la Rosa. Never won a race, though, Pedro de la Rosa. Of course, he was all integrated with the scandal with the Ferrari intellectual property, wasn't he? I won't go into that. That was later in 2007. Not Pedro de la Rosa's fault, but he got himself tangled up in that, unfortunately. But it wasn't. I don't think he was not at fault at that at all for that. But anyway, let's get off Pedro de la Rosa. So, so let's go back to Ferrari again a little bit. I've already droned on about Aston Martin enough, I think. So, so Ferrari, fantastic times they're putting in. They've got, I didn't realise, I'm prepared to accept, I'm prepared to admit that I didn't know there was such a thing as different sized turbos. And you can have a small one or a large one or anything in between, I guess. I didn't know that. And a small turbo is very sort of like a point and squirt and great for less power-hungry tracks. And a big turbo is better for building up speed on bigger tracks. That makes sense. That actually does make sense. A Ferrari has a small turbo, which is perfect for Bahrain, but won't be so good in Adelaide and Spa and Silverstone and Monza, tracks like that. So we don't know. At the moment, you could say Ferrari are the favourites for the Bahrain Grand Prix, but that's like 4 races into the season, isn't it? But not for Adelaide. Apparently, the biggest turbo is in the Audi. They've got the biggest turbo. But anyway, some fantastic starts off the line for the Ferrari. They've really been stealing a lot of the headlines, basically, for their great starts, and they've got an interesting diffuser, and of course they've got a very interesting rear wing that was only used once, but it turns upside down, which looks great. The only problem is, as was pointed out by one of the pundits, is it takes a while, because it's turning completely upside down, it takes a while for that rear wing to complete its manoeuvre. Now, therefore, you have to activate it earlier than other rear wings have to be activated to close. So I think that's automatic, though, isn't it? Yeah, the closing is automatic. They have to manually open the wings from inside the car, I think, but then it automatically closes. Isn't that right? Well, they would have to set that auto closing for a little bit earlier, basically. Otherwise, the Ferraris will be going into corners with the wing, the rear wing slightly still open, which could be problematic getting around the corner. But yeah, so they stole a lot of the headlines there with their innovation, but they only tried it a little bit, and then they didn't try it again after that for some reason. In fact, immediately after trying it, the Ferrari was out of action for a few hours. So, and when they came back out eventually, it was not there. So I don't know if they were being told to take it off. I haven't heard any announcement there. You can't just. No, they could just replace it, of course, because they ran a normal rear wing after that, basically. Yeah, so great starts by Hamilton. So they've stood out for that reason. Red Bull have stood out because their car continues to be very reliable, despite the fact that it's a new engine, of course, a new Red Bull Ford engine. Red Bull basically creating their own engine. That's amazing. They started that. I remember it being announced a few years ago, and they've been working on it all this time for when Honda were going to leave. Honda left, and then 5 minutes later changed their mind and came back. Honda always changed their mind. They chop and change horrifically. They left at the end of the 2008 season, and then of course regretted it when the car that they were in won the championship the following year. Honda are very fickle and constantly keep changing their mind all the time. And that's why they're back in again in the Aston Martin, although they probably regret that now. So they've been making headlines, Red Bull, just by having a reliable engine. That's very good, and a fast one as well. Mercedes making headlines simply by being very consistent and very fast in the Barcelona shakedown, and that sort of continued through. They're not dominant like they were then, but they're still right at the top. The ones that weren't setting any headlines really were McLaren. They've been very much under the radar, I think, until Norris was able to put in some fast laps towards the end of the afternoon test session under the lights, basically. On the final day, he was almost in a bit of a battle with Leclerc, which Leclerc most definitely won in the end. But the McLaren looked very, very fast there. But up to that point, McLaren have not really done much at all to stand out, I would say. They've been steadily getting on with their job, but they haven't done anything to really stand out. What else was I going to... the Audi, yeah. See, I said after the first test, I think, or was it after the shakedown, that to me, the Audi looks the slowest car, just to look at. I literally mean optics, looking at it. It looks like it's got a very basic design, and I've seen, it might seem daft to go by just looks. Obviously, if you're some kind of designer, if you're a car designer, you can look at a car and go by the looks and think, oh, that looks fast, or that looks like it'll be fast, that looks like it'll be slow. But I'm no designer, so I'm just literally going by what's pretty, you know. And I've thought ever since I first saw the Audi that it looks too basic, and I've seen that with other cars in the past as well. It looks slow because it looks like a very basic, simple design. But it's not the slowest car. It's faster than Cadillac. We don't really know how fast Aston Martin are because they really need to sort of complete some laps to see how fast Aston Martin are. But Audi are definitely faster than Cadillac. And as I've said before, the Audi and the Cadillac, one of them's got, basically an old team and a new engine, and the other one's got a new team and an old engine. You know, the Audi has brand new engine, the Audi engine, but an established team in Sauber. And Cadillac has an established engine with the Ferrari power unit, but a brand new team. So they've both got their issues, basically, in trying to get going at the start of the season. But the Audi even looks it looks like, not only does it look like it's a quick design for the car, just how it looks, but also the paint, the way it's painted looks like they didn't finish painting it. It looks like they started at the back, they got part way through painting from the back, and then they realised that they were just basically copying McLaren and the McLaren colours, and so they backed out and stopped about 1/3 of the way through painting the car and just left the rest silver. It's a terrible paint job, I think, because it does look half finished. I don't understand it. It doesn't look good at all. They're not Audi colours, are they? I don't think that. I did look that up, and they're not Audi colours, are they? Like, 2/3 silver, then a bit of orange and black. Anyway, so I know the Audi has been doing well, and as the test has progressed, it's been doing better, but it still looks like a very simple car, in my view. But it's definitely faster than the Cadillac, and reliable as well. What I don't like hearing is when people say things like, just getting to the finish would be a good result. That's what people keep saying about Cadillac. All they've got to do is they just get to the finish in Melbourne. Not Adelaide. There's not been an Adelaide Grand Prix since 1995. Just getting to the finish in Melbourne would be a good result. No, it wouldn't. I could get to the finish in Melbourne. I'd be a long way behind, but in my car I could get to the finish. Just drive around for 60 laps, and then you're at the finish, aren't you? And the Cadillac, it has been reliable. It's got a reliable Ferrari inside. Unless Hamilton's in the car, that's when the Ferrari isn't reliable. But unfortunately for Lewis. But in general, it's a reliable power unit. So if it's reliable, why wouldn't it be able to do 55, 60 laps around a circuit for an hour and 40 minutes? So I don't think just getting to the finish would be a good result. If the Cadillacs come home 3 laps behind the next car in front, they're not going to jump up and down because they've managed to do an hour and 40 minutes without breaking down. So I never like that phrase. Just getting to the finish would be a good result. We're just aiming to get to the finishing line. What are you talking about? No, a good result would be having cars behind them. You could say that. You could say, if we get to the finish and there is at least one car behind us that we have actually beaten, not just because they've had a 2-minute long pit stop or something, then yes, that's a result. Okay, I'm not suggesting they should get points or anything, but if they just have 1 or 2 cars behind them, that would be a great result. But coming home last and second last, laps behind the next car in front, is not something to celebrate just because they cross the line. Anyway, in my humble opinion anyway. So what else did I make notes about here? Most of my chat has been about the Aston Martin, of course, hasn't it? Lewis. What is Lewis going to do? I noticed that a few weeks ago, Lewis Hamilton was 33-1 to win the championship. And in a few days, and then about after the first Bahrain test, he was 14-1. He's now, I think, 6-1. And that's a reflection on how well the Ferrari looks, how good it looks. Leclerc is more fancied than Lewis, and I'm not surprised, because Lewis continues always, even though he didn't have as much running as Charles in this final test, he's still, you just know that he's a little bit slower than Charles all the time, a little bit slower. I think the only way Hamilton, if it's a fight between the two Ferraris for the championship, I don't think it will be as simple as that, but if it is, the only way Lewis will win is racecraft, his experience, out and out pace. Charles will always have 2 or 3 tenths on him. But anyway, I hope it is. I'd love to see a battle at the front between Charles and Lewis. I think Charles would win it, but you never know, Hamilton's not done quite yet. We'll see, but I have been saying for a couple of years that I think he's a spent force. I don't want to say things like that, but I do think he is a spent force. But let's just hope I'm wrong. Lando looks very quick, and he'll either be, well, he'll be relaxed going into this year, and that'll either make him fast or slow. You can be slow because you could be too relaxed, laid back, I've won the championship, and you don't quite have that edge because you're too chill, you know. Or it could have the opposite and loosen up your muscles and make you drive faster because you're relaxed and not trying too hard. So we'll see which way it goes with Lando. Oscar's going to be all over him, of course, as ever. We'll see what happens between those two. I certainly do believe, as I said last year, that Oscar lost the championship last year simply because Norris, Lando got himself back into gear, basically, because he had always been faster than Oscar. And it was because of mistakes that Lando was making in qualifying. That's what suddenly won loads of races for Oscar. Anyway, we'll see what happens this year. I think Oscar will be a lot more competitive because he is better. He is getting better year on year. So there you go. The Ferrari looks very good, but it looks very good on the Bahrain track, which is good for small turbos. Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren. They're all right there, aren't they? Some people, most of the pundits seem to be putting McLaren at the back of those four. I don't think you can really put them in order. I think they're all alongside each other, all four. And of course, then you've got the drivers as well, sort of making a difference. So I don't think you can really separate. They've all done really well. They've all shown strengths in different areas, basically. So we'll see how it all shakes up in Adelaide, which is, of course, a particular type of circuit. It's a very power-hungry circuit. Doesn't look like it. Looks like a slow street circuit, but it's actually quite a power track. And we'll see how they all go there. Right, I think I've probably finished my little look at testing. Just trying to think if there was anything else that I was going to say. Yeah, there's nothing else to say. I'm going to try and I'm going to spend the rest of the day trying to hunt down an interview with Adrian Newey. You never know, there might be one out there. See if he's shown his face at all. That's crazy, that is. Team principal. Right. Okay. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so. I don't just do Formula 1 videos. I do all sorts of videos, but mostly Formula 1. And I'll be tracking the season as we go through as well. Again, not from any advanced technical point of view. Just a fan, basically, who's been watching it for decades. Been watching F1 for decades, since the early 80s. Right, so thank you very much for watching and listening. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so. Or like the video or put a comment on the video. If you want to leave a tip, you can do as well on the thanks button under the video. But until the next video, I will bid you farewell. Thank you very much and goodbye.